Hi, this is Roy. We're going to look at active listening today. This is a great skill set to be able to build and foster for working organizations of all different types. Also, just in interpersonal relations, it can be very useful. So we're going to have a look at active listening. We're going to talk about what active listening is, and then some of the skills that are a part of what we would call active listening. So let's go ahead and get into it. Stephen Covey said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And we certainly see this happening a lot today in society and in organizations, and as we deal with people in our families as well. Very often we don't really hear what other people are saying. And part of the reason that we don't is because we're starting to think how we're going to reply and what our position is and how to get that across before we've actually heard the other person out. And so we may be missing information. And that's the whole point of active listening, is to try not to do that. So when we get into what active listening actually is, active listening is a way of interacting with another person. And our goal for active listening is to promote mutual understanding and thereby set the stage to do problem solving. So we want to understand somebody, and we also want to be able to collaborate with them. So this is extremely important in organizations, and also in dealing with customers. I mean, you can think about this in a variety of different scenarios and situations where this would be extremely useful. And the Center for Creative Leadership has a model with 6 key active listening skills. If you go out on the internet, you're going to find a variety of these, and they range anywhere from 3 skills to 10 or more. So there's a lot of different ways that the idea of active listening has been broken down into different frameworks and models, but it's fairly similar. So we're going to look at the one that's from Center for Creative Leadership today, and they have some great resources on their website if you want to go check them out. So we're going to break this down into 6 key active listening skills: paying attention, withholding judgment, reflecting, clarifying, summarizing, and then sharing. Active listening skill number 1 is to pay attention. That may sound pretty simple. I mean, you might think, well, I could do that. I mean, I could pay attention. But as we said in the beginning with Stephen Covey's quote, is that we're very often not listening to people to actually understand them. And so we want to try to understand what other people are actually saying. And so that begins by paying attention, which is setting a tone that gives the other person an opportunity to think and to speak. So we want to allow wait time before we respond. And we want to make sure that we don't cut someone off or finish another person's sentence. So if you find that you're in an interaction with somebody and you are doing that, you start to finish sentences for them or jump in before they've actually stopped talking, then you might want to kind of reset a little bit. And that might be a good cue for you that you may not be actively listening. And then again, I've said that before, don't begin formulating a response until they've actually finished. So, I've done this. You hear somebody, they're giving their viewpoint on something, they're talking to you, and you just know where this is going. You're so sure where they're going to wind up and what their end, position or point or perspective is going to be. But after they continue to talk, when they finish, you realize that they aren't exactly where you thought they were. And so you won't know that, though, if you're beginning to jump in before they've finished. And so one of the ways you can kind of put somebody at ease so that they can actually say what they want to say is with paying attention to your body language. So if you're in person, obviously, the way you're sitting, the way you are looking at somebody, are you making eye contact, or are you looking away, or are you texting instead of listening to them? Those are all things you want to pay attention to. You want to actually be present in the moment with the person. So many of our interactions are virtual these days. And so, some people think that, well, body language doesn't really count because I'm all virtual. And many virtual encounters are happening with a webcam. And so while the rest of your body may not be visible in the frame, your facial expressions in your upper body are often quite visible and maybe more scrutinized. Your expressions, and whether your eyes are looking at the camera, or whether it looks like you're multitasking instead of listening to the person. So this body language thing also applies very much to the virtual arena. And so that's important. Active listening skill number 2, withholding judgment. Keep an open mind. And this doesn't just mean lip service. So if we want to actually be able to do what we said when we started the conversation today, of being able to encourage mutual understanding for the purpose of collaborating to problem solve, we need to truly be open to ideas, perspectives, and possibilities that we might not have considered, or that might not be our default. So keep an open mind. And that, of course, does mean holding criticisms that might immediately jump into our mind about what the person's saying. Again, we talked about, oh, I think I know where this person's going with this. I know how this ends, and I know how I feel, and we're not on the same page. But at this point, you really don't know their complete position, perspective, idea. So, if you start to jump in and criticize right away, just sure where it's going, then you can really shut them down. And then we don't have that opportunity to collaborate and problem solve. And of course, that means you want to avoid arguing or selling your point of view. At this point, we're in active listening skill number 2. We're trying to listen, and we definitely need to avoid arguing and selling. And then our active listening skill 3 is to reflect. So we don't want to assume we understand the other person immediately. Periodically, we want to jump in and we want to give them back, reflect back to them the key facts that we think that they are giving to us. So we want to do that for 2 reasons, not just for accuracy. Of course, we want to make sure we've gotten the accuracy correct. But we're also setting the stage of trust. So we want that person to understand that we really are listening to them. So that will be demonstrated by us giving back to them what they're saying to us. Now that's talking about facts. The second bullet point on the slide here is talking about what if somebody's just expressing feelings? What if what they're saying to you is much more feeling-based than fact-based? You still want to reflect back to them what you're hearing. And that could be saying something like, at a certain point, it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated by this situation, or whatever that feeling is that you're hearing from them. And then let them verify that, yes, they're feeling that way. Feelings and facts are not the same thing. But if somebody is stuck in feelings, they need to feel heard before they can move forward often. So we want to make sure we're doing that. And then our active listening skill 4, clarify. We want to seek additional information, again, in the spirit of collaboration. So you can do this by asking open-ended or probing questions. And that's just simply saying something like, they say a certain thing and you say, okay, can you tell me more about that? Very often we'll hear people say more. that's the level of comfort you would have with the person. You may be, as you get more comfortable with them, you might be able to get a little more, cut off some of the surrounding language. But if, this is your first encounter, can you tell me more? Or would you mind explaining or describing that a little further? Again, tone is really important here. So you can ask a probing question with a tone that sets somebody off, or you can ask a probing question with a tone that's open. So that's definitely nuance in there. And that may take some work. And then don't be afraid to ask a follow-up question. If they're talking about a particular problem or issue, you'd ask them to tell you more. They've done that. And then you might say something like, well, what have you tried to address that in the past? Or how have you handled those issues? Is there anything that you have attempted to move forward with that? And we also want to kind of encourage the person who's speaking to you to do some of their own self-reflection here. So again, there's trust involved. So if we've been building trust in the conversation up until this point, then hopefully they feel safe enough that they can do some self-reflection, with us. And that's something that it may not always happen, but we definitely want to kind of set the stage for that, because it can really improve communications. Active listening skill number 5 is to summarize. So restate the key elements for follow-up action and accountability. Okay, so we want to give a brief statement of what we think we heard. I'm going to ask the other person to restate what we have said if we have been speaking at all during this interaction. If we've just been listening, then just kind of put that in the back of your mind that at the point we start speaking more, we want to periodically ask them to reflect back to us what they heard. Summarize what did I say to you? And you're checking for mutual understanding. And then if there's something that you are actually working on with this person on this particular issue or item, perspective, project, whatever it might be, you want to start seeking agreement on mutual responsibility and on any follow-up actions that there are going to be. And that's both of you, back and forth. And again, so accountability obviously is a big thing these days. And we do see many organizations where there doesn't seem to be good accountability. Some of that can be down to communication. And so your communication with a person can really bolster accountability, follow-up, and again, problem solving. And then our active listening skill number 6 is to share. So hopefully at this point, we've set the stage. The other person has felt heard. We've done some qualifying to try to make sure we understand what they've said. We've got a little trust built up. Now's a good time to start giving them any ideas or suggestions or feelings that we have around that particular topic. With a clear understanding of where they're coming from, you're going to be better positioned to share your ideas in a way that they can understand, the way that they can receive. And then you can begin, if there's a particular issue or problem that you're going to try to work on together, you can start doing the problem solving, hopefully at this point. And as you get into the problem solving, you don't want to let active listening go by the wayside. You don't want to say, okay, well, I did the active listening thing, and now let's just go off to the races. Yeah, okay, great. We do want to get things done, but you do want to continue in the spirit of active listening to periodically ask additional questions, seek understanding, and of course, you want to avoid dictating a solution. That we're trying to collaborate, and so that's kind of the whole thing that we're trying to get done here. is to collaborate, be on the same page, and get things done. And that is kind of our quick overview of active listening. And I hope you have found it useful. And if you would like a copy of this slide deck, you can find it on my Google site. So that's all I've got for you today. And you guys have a good one. Take care and be kind. Thanks.